My name is Ranger Ethan Cole. I'm 41 years old. And 14 months ago, I stood between a hunter and two Bigfoot children. What happened that night, what I saw, what I heard, what I chose to do, changed everything I thought I knew about the woods. About fear. About what's real. This is that story. I'm telling it exactly as I lived it. No jokes. No exaggeration. No maybe. I have the notes I wrote the next morning with my hands still shaking. I have the radio log. I have the witness who saw the same thing I saw. And I have the one thing I can't show anyone. Because if I do, it won't just ruin my career. It could get someone killed. But more than anything, I have a promise to keep. To two lives that never asked to be hunted. September 3rd, 2024. That's the day I stopped being the kind of ranger who only follows the rules, and became the kind who protects what the rules were never written for. I work in a park in the Pacific Northwest. Big forest, deep trails, cold rivers. The kind of place where people come to feel small in a good way. The kind of place where a single wrong turn can turn into a missing person poster. I'd been a ranger for over a decade. Before that, I was a volunteer. Before that, I was just a kid who loved the woods so much I couldn't imagine living anywhere else. I was good at my job. Calm. Patient. The one they called when someone was scared, because I knew how to talk people down. I had a quiet life. My wife, Mara, was 38. She worked at a small clinic outside the park. My daughter, Lily, was 9. Bright, loud, always asking questions. And my son, Noah, was 6. Soft-spoken, always watching, always listening. I'm telling you that because it matters. Because when you have kids, you start noticing things you didn't notice before. You notice small footprints, small cries, small fears. And that week, there were small things happening in the park that didn't sit right with me. It started with visitors coming into the station with the same look in their eyes. Not the normal, we got lost, look. This was different. This was, something looked back at me, fear. A couple told me they heard 2 short whistles behind them on the trail. One high, one lower. Like 2 people calling back and forth. They thought it was a game. Then the whistles started matching their pace. Step for step. Like whatever was out there was copying them. A day later, a father came in angry, saying someone threw pine cones at his family from the trees. He kept insisting it was teenagers. But there were no teenagers. No other cars. No voices. Nothing. Then a group of hikers told me they saw 2 little shadows dart across a clearing just before sunset. They said it looked like 2 kids, but the way they moved wasn't right. Too quick. Too smooth. Like they belonged to the ground. I did what rangers do. I nodded. I asked questions. I wrote it down. I told them it was probably wildlife. But that night, when the park finally got quiet, I drove out alone to check the trail. I wasn't looking for a monster. I was looking for a reason. I walked near the creek where the hikers claimed they saw the shadows. The ground was soft from rain 2 days earlier. Muddy in the low spots. Perfect for leaving marks. And I found them. 2 sets of footprints. Small. Side by side. Almost identical. Not boots. Not sneakers. Not bare human feet. Too wide at the front. Too deep in the heel. Toes that pressed into the mud in a way that made my stomach go cold. I stared at those prints for a long time. I could have taken pictures. I could have called it in. I could have made it a thing. But I didn't. Because I knew what would happen if I did. People would come. Not curious people. The wrong kind of people. So I covered the prints back up with loose dirt like I'd never seen them. Like I could erase what my eyes had just learned. And I told myself I was being responsible. I told myself I was protecting the park from a circus. I told myself that was the end of it. It wasn't. 2 nights later, just after midnight, The station radio crackled. A short message came through. Someone had been seen entering a closed area of the park. That section was not for visitors. It wasn't scary. It wasn't mysterious. It was just dangerous and remote. Slips, cliffs, thick brush, places where you don't want to be in the dark. When someone goes in there at night, it's usually one of three things: stupid, lost, or illegal. I put on my jacket, grabbed my flashlight, and headed out. I didn't wake my partner. I didn't call the sheriff. I thought I could handle one trespasser. I thought it would be a warning, a lecture, and a ride back. I parked at the edge of the closed gate and continued on foot. The forest at night has a way of making you feel like you're walking inside a living thing. The air is damp. The darkness is thick. Sounds travel weird. Your own steps feel louder than they should. I moved slow, listening more than looking. And then I saw a flicker ahead. A quick flash, like light bouncing off glass. Then I heard it. A soft metallic click. Not a branch snapping. Not a rock. Metal. The sound you hear when someone adjusts something heavy and tries to do it quietly. My body went tight. I turned my flashlight off for a moment and stood still. Silence. Then another faint sound, like fabric brushing against bark. Someone was close. I turned my light back on and called out, "Park Ranger, you're in a closed area." At first, nothing. Then a man stepped into the edge of my beam like he'd been waiting for me to speak. Tall, broad, dark clothes, a cap low over his face. He wasn't startled. He wasn't nervous. He looked focused, like he had a plan and I was an inconvenience. "Evening," he said. "Calm. Too calm. Didn't expect to run into anyone out here." "You need to leave," I said. "Now." He smiled a little. Not friendly. More like he was measuring me. "I'm leaving," he said. "Just taking a walk." Nobody takes a walk in a closed area at midnight. My flashlight dropped slightly, and that's when I saw what he was trying to hide along his side. Long, straight, covered but not covered enough. A rifle. My mouth went dry. "Put that down," I said. He didn't move right away. He just looked past me into the trees, like he was listening for something I couldn't hear. Then he whispered, so quietly I almost didn't catch it. "They're here." My stomach dropped. "Who's here?" I asked. His eyes flashed with something that made my skin crawl. Not fear. Excitement. "You don't know what you've got in this park," he said. "Two of them. Small ones." Two. My mind snapped back to the footprints. Two sets. Side by side. My grip tightened on my flashlight. "You're trespassing," I said. "And you're armed. Turn around and walk back with me." He chuckled under his breath like I was being naive. Then, from down the slope, I heard it. Two soft calls. One higher, one lower. Not words. Not animal noises either. They sounded intentional, like two voices answering each other. The man's head turned instantly toward the sound. "There," he whispered again. He shifted his weight forward, like he was ready to move. I stepped in front of him. "You are not going anywhere," I said. And that's when the forest went quiet in a way I've only felt a few times in my life. Like everything was holding its breath. My flashlight beam swept the ground near the creek. And there they were again. Fresh impressions in the mud. Two sets of small footprints, close together, like they were moving as a pair. Then I saw movement. Two shapes, low to the ground, slipping between trees at the edge of my light. Small, quick. I took a step without thinking, raising my voice. "Hey, stop." And the moment the word left my mouth, I knew it was the wrong thing to say. Because the two shapes froze. Not like deer freeze. Not like rabbits freeze. They froze like children caught doing something they shouldn't. And in that tiny pause, My light caught their eyes. Two pairs, reflecting back at me. Too high off the ground to be raccoons. Too steady to be frightened animals. They were watching me. Watching him. Watching everything. Behind me, the man inhaled slowly, like someone savoring a meal before the first bite. And then he raised his rifle. Not at me. Past me. Toward the two small shapes in the dark. I didn't have time to think. I only had time to choose. And I chose. I stepped directly into the line of his aim and said, with a voice I didn't recognize as my own, "No." Then, from somewhere deeper in the trees, close enough to feel in my bones, something big moved. And something big answered those two small calls. The sound that came from deeper in the trees wasn't a growl. It wasn't a scream either. It was a low, steady warning, like the forest itself had found a voice. Everything in me reacted at once. My skin went tight. My breath caught. My instincts screamed at me to back up. But I didn't, because the rifle behind me was still raised, and those two small shapes, those two little pairs of eyes, were still frozen at the edge of my light. And the man was smiling. Not like someone who was scared. Like someone who'd been waiting. "You hear that?" he whispered. "That's the big one." I didn't take my eyes off the shapes in the trees. "Put the rifle down," I said again, slower this time. "You don't know what you're doing." He gave a soft laugh, like I just said something funny. "Oh, I know exactly what I'm doing." The way he said it made my stomach turn. I stepped to the side just enough to keep myself between him and whatever was out there. My flashlight shook slightly in my hand, and I hated that he could probably see it. "Last warning," I said. "Turn around. Walk back with me." He didn't move. Instead, he lowered the rifle just a little and tilted his head, listening. The two small shapes in the trees shifted. Barely. Like they were trying to decide if they could run. And then I saw more than their eyes. I saw the outline of a shoulder. A small head. A long arm. Too long. Too thin. Too wrong to be a normal child. They were close enough that my light caught the edges of their bodies, and I could tell they were covered in something dark. Fur, hair, something that broke up their shape in the shadows. The smaller one leaned into the other like it wanted to disappear inside its twin. Twins. That word hit me hard, like my brain had been avoiding it until it couldn't anymore. Two of them. Together. And scared. Behind me, the man shifted his feet, quiet as a cat. "I'm not here for you, Ranger," he said. "Move." My throat went dry. "No." He exhaled through his nose and looked almost disappointed. "You don't get it," he said. "Those are worth more than your job. More than your whole life." I wanted to tell him he was sick. I wanted to tell him to leave before he made a mistake he could never take back. But the truth is, I was scared. Not just of whatever was big in the trees. Scared of what a human being would do when he thinks he's about to get what he came for. The two small ones made a sound then. A quick, shaky little call. Like a question. And the answer from the dark came immediately. Closer this time. Heavy movement. Leaves shifting. A weight pressing the ground. I felt it in my chest before I fully heard it. The man's smile grew wider. "Perfect," he whispered. That's when I realized something that made my blood run cold. He wasn't hunting a single creature. He was hunting a family. Those small ones weren't lost. They were being watched. And he knew how to bring the big one in. He took one step forward. I took one step with him, blocking. He tried to go around me. I moved again. We did that twice, like some horrible dance, until his patience snapped. He shoved me. Not hard enough to knock me down, but hard enough to test me. To see if I'd really stand in his way. I planted my feet. "You touch them," I said, voice low. "And you're not leaving this place the way you came in." He stared at me for a long moment. Then he leaned in slightly and said something so calm, So casual, it chilled me more than any scream could have. "You think you're protecting them," he said. "But you're just making it easier for me to find where they sleep." My heart slammed in my chest, because he was right. If I called in more people, if I made noise, if I turned this into a scene, it would pull attention. And attention was exactly what those two small lives couldn't survive. The big movement in the trees came closer again. I could hear the breath now, deep and slow, like a furnace hidden behind bark. The two small ones began to back away, careful and quiet, like they were trying not to trigger anything. One of them, just for a second, lifted a hand. A hand. Not a paw. Not a claw. A hand with fingers. It reached toward me like it didn't know whether I was danger or help. That single gesture changed something inside me. I stopped seeing a mystery. I stopped seeing a story people tell. I saw children. Not human children, but children. And someone had brought a gun into their world. I lowered my flashlight slightly and spoke softer, not to the man. He didn't deserve softness. To them. "It's okay," I whispered. "I'm not here to hurt you." The twins froze again, like they understood the shape of my voice, even if they didn't understand words. The man behind me hissed, angry now. "Don't do that," he said. "Don't make them trust you." Trust. That's what he didn't want. Because if they trusted me, they might run to me instead of back into the dark. And if they ran the wrong way, he'd have his shot. He raised the rifle again. I moved faster than I thought I could. I swung my flashlight up and straight into his face, flooding his eyes with light. He cursed and jerked his head away. In that same moment, the twins bolted. Not away from me. Past me. Like two shadows cutting through my beam. And for the first time, I saw them clearly. Just a flash, just a heartbeat. Small bodies covered in dark fur. Long arms. Faces that were almost like ours, but different in a way that made my mind stumble. And their expressions. Fear. Pure fear. They ran down the slope toward thicker trees, moving low, fast, silent. The man recovered from the light and swung the rifle after them. "No!" I shouted. I lunged, grabbed the barrel with both hands, and shoved it up toward the sky. The rifle went off. A loud crack that shattered the night. Birds exploded out of the canopy like black paper tearing through air. My ears rang. My hands burned. And the man's face twisted into rage. He yanked hard. I lost my grip and stumbled back. The twins were gone into the dark. For half a second, I thought I'd done it. I thought I'd bought them enough time. Then the man turned his head toward me and smiled again. Not the same smile. This one was mean. This one said, "Now it's personal. You just made this worse for yourself," he said. And then, without warning, something huge moved between the trees. So close that the air changed. So close that my body screamed at me to run. My flashlight beam caught a shape rising behind the man, taller than the trees felt like they should allow. And the man, the hunter, slowly turned around. The smile vanished from his face. And for the first time since I met him, he looked afraid. He lifted the rifle with shaking hands, pointed it into the darkness, and whatever was there, took one heavy step forward. I heard a deep, steady breath, then a sound like a warning that didn't need words. And I realized, standing there in the middle of the night, that I was no longer deciding between rules and choices. I was deciding between life and death. Because if that hunter fired again, the forest was going to answer. And I didn't know if I could stop either side in time. I can still see it when I close my eyes. My flashlight caught a shape rising behind the hunter. Slow, silent, impossible. Not like a man stepping out of the dark. More like the dark itself standing up. He was huge. Bigger than any bear I'd ever seen on two legs. Shoulders wide, arms hanging long, and a face that made my brain glitch because it wasn't animal enough to ignore, and it wasn't human enough to explain. And the strangest part? He didn't come in like a killer. He came in like a father. The hunter turned, and the color drained from his face so fast it was like someone pulled a plug. For the first time all night, his confidence broke. His hands shook on the rifle. He tried to lift it, but his fear made him clumsy. The barrel wobbled. He swallowed hard, eyes locked on the thing in the trees. I stood there between them, breathing shallow, heart hammering like it wanted out of my chest. "Don't," I said. I wasn't sure who I meant it for, the hunter or the giant. The giant took one slow step forward. Leaves sank under his weight without a crunch. That's what messed with me most. Something that big should have sounded like a truck, but it moved like it had been born to silence. The hunter whispered, almost to himself, "Oh my God." Then he did the worst thing he could have done. He raised the rifle. Not at me. Not even at the giant. Past him. Toward where the twins had run. Like he was willing to use the big one's presence as cover. Like he thought he could shoot the small ones while the giant was right there. I felt something in me snap. I stepped into the line again, close enough to smell him, sweat, dirt, and something sharp like metal. "You're not doing this," I said. He hissed through his teeth, eyes wild now. "Move." I didn't. The giant made a sound then. Low, deep. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't rage. It was a warning. The kind of warning you feel in your ribs. The hunter's hands tightened. I saw his finger pull. The rifle went off. No, it didn't fire. It clicked. A dead click. Empty chamber or jam, I don't know. But it was enough. Because the hunter flinched, shocked, like the world had betrayed him. Like luck had failed. And in that half second, I moved. I slammed into him with everything I had. We went down hard into wet leaves and mud. My flashlight flew from my hand and rolled, throwing our shadows across the ground like fighting ghosts. He grunted, tried to roll, tried to get the rifle back in his hands. I grabbed the barrel with both hands and yanked. He punched me in the side, hard. I tasted air and pain. But I didn't let go. I'm not a fighter. I'm not some action hero. I'm just a dad. A ranger. A man who suddenly couldn't allow a gun to point at two scared kids, whatever they were. We struggled, both of us slipping in mud, the rifle between us like a bone two dogs refused to release. Then the giant moved. Not toward me. Toward the hunter. One step. The ground vibrated under it. The hunter saw him coming, and his eyes went huge. Panic replaced anger. He let go of the rifle and scrambled back like a crab, digging heels into mud, trying to put distance between himself and the thing that wasn't supposed to exist. I snatched the rifle up fast and kicked it away from both of us, into the brush. I didn't want it in anyone's hands. The hunter got to his feet, breathing like he'd been running for miles. He looked at me like I'd betrayed him. "You're crazy," he panted. "You're protecting them." "Yes," I said. "Get out." He glanced past the giant, toward the trees where the twins had vanished. He was thinking about it. I saw it in his eyes. He was still hunting even while he was terrified. Then, like a snake, his hand slid down toward his belt. A knife. I saw the handle before I saw the blade. My mouth went dry. But the giant made another sound. Shorter, sharper, and the hunter froze. Because the giant was close enough now that the hunter could smell him too. Close enough to understand the simple truth. If he tried anything, he might not get a second chance. The hunter's knife stayed half out, trembling. I lifted my hands, palms open, not for the hunter, for the giant. "Easy," I said, voice low. "Easy. I'm not your enemy." The giant's head turned slightly toward me. His eyes caught my light from the fallen flashlight, and I swear to you, there was thought there, not a blank animal stare. A look that measured me. A look that asked a question. Behind him, from deeper in the trees, came two quick, shaky calls. The twins. They were nearby. They were scared. They were watching. The giant answered immediately, one low sound, steady, calming, like a parent saying, "I'm here." The hunter watched that exchange, and something ugly twisted across his face. Even in fear, he was angry. He looked at me and said, "You don't know what you're doing. People pay for this. Real money. Walk away," I told him. Now. He backed up slowly, never taking his eyes off the giant. Then he turned and ran. Not quietly. He crashed through brush, branches snapping, leaves flying. His footsteps got farther and farther until the forest swallowed him. And then it was just me, and the giant, and somewhere close, two small lives hiding in the dark. I stood there shaking, trying to force my breathing to slow down. The flashlight on the ground still shone sideways, lighting up the mud and the roots. My radio hissed softly at my chest like it didn't know what to say. The giant didn't come closer. He stayed between me and the direction the hunter had run, like he wasn't sure if I was safe yet, or like he wasn't sure if I was a threat. I took a careful step back, lowering my shoulders, making myself smaller. "I'm leaving," I said quietly. "I'm not going to hurt them." The giant's head tilted. He listened to the tone more than the words. Another small call came from the trees, higher this time. The twin with the higher voice sounded hurt, or tired, or both. Something in my chest tightened. I looked toward the sound and spoke softly, not moving too fast. "It's okay," I said. "I'm not going to come at you. I just want to help." Silence. Then a tiny movement. Two shapes slipped behind a fallen log, just inside the edge of the sideways light. They were close enough now that I could see them better. Small bodies covered in dark fur. Long arms, thin legs, and faces that made me feel dizzy because they were so close to ours in the wrong ways. Expressions, emotion, fear. One of them was pressed against the other, shaking, and the one on the left was limping. It took a step and winced like its foot hurt. My heart dropped, because that meant they hadn't just been running around. They'd been chased before. They'd been hurt before. And now they'd crossed paths with the wrong human. I did the only thing I could think to do. I sat down, right there in the mud. I lowered myself slowly like I was sitting near a stray dog so it wouldn't bolt. I opened my hands and kept them visible. "I'm Ethan," I said, voice gentle. "I'm not going to hurt you." The twins stared. The limping one made a tiny sound, more like a whimper than a call. The other twin shifted in front of it instinctively, protective, like a shield. The giant stepped closer then, but not toward me, toward them. He crouched slightly, and I swear the whole forest seemed to move with him. He made a soft sound, low and steady. The twins answered. One high, one low, back and forth, like a little conversation. And then the giant did something that made my throat tighten. He reached down and touched the limping twin's head with the back of his fingers. Not rough, not scary, gentle. The limping twin leaned into it, like a child leaning into a parent's hand. I swallowed hard. My eyes burned, and I hated that, because I didn't want them to see me as emotional or unpredictable. I reached slowly for my water bottle. I unscrewed it with exaggerated slowness and held it out in front of me, not moving closer. Water. A simple offering. The twins watched the bottle like it was a trick. The protective one sniffed the air. Then it looked at the giant, like asking permission. The giant made one soft sound. The protective twin stepped forward first, cautious, and took the bottle with both hands. Both hands. Fingers wrapped around plastic. It lifted the bottle to its mouth awkwardly, like it had seen people do it before but hadn't done it much itself. It drank. Then it handed it to the limping twin. The limping twin drank too, slower. And while they drank, the giant never took his eyes off me. Not hostile. Alert. Like he was deciding whether I was safe to keep alive. I didn't move. I didn't reach. I didn't do anything sudden. I just watched them and felt my whole world tilt. Because in that moment, it wasn't Bigfoot anymore. It wasn't a story. It wasn't a joke. It was a family hiding in the woods, and a man with a rifle who wanted them dead. I whispered, more to myself than anyone, "What have people done to you?" The giant heard the softness, not the words. The softness. He made a sound that was almost like a sigh, and then he looked past me, up the slope, toward the direction the hunter had run. And I realized he was listening. So I listened too. At first, nothing. Then, far away, something faint. A voice. A human voice. Not one. More than one. And then another sound, like a door slamming. Like a car trunk. Like an engine trying to start quietly and failing. The hunter hadn't just run away. He was calling someone. Or he had someone waiting. And suddenly I understood the danger. One hunter was bad. More than one. That was a massacre waiting to happen. The twins were still close, still vulnerable, one of them injured. And the giant, this father, this protector, was standing between them and an entire world that would destroy them if it saw them. I looked at the giant and spoke the truth. "They're coming," I said softly. "More people." The giant didn't understand my words, but he understood my tone. He stiffened. His head turned toward the twins. He made a quick, urgent sound. The twins immediately moved, like they'd learned that sound meant one thing: run. But the limping twin couldn't run fast. It tried, stumbled, caught itself. And in that moment, the protective twin looked back at me, and I saw it in the eyes. A split-second decision. It didn't want to leave its twin, and it didn't know if it could carry them. That's when I made the second choice of that night. The choice that would either save them, or make me the reason they died. I stood up slowly, hands open, and I said, as gently as I could, "Let me help." And from the darkness up the slope, a flashlight beam flickered through the trees. Closer than it should have been. That flashlight beam up the slope made my blood turn to ice. It wasn't mine. Mine was on the ground, still shining sideways through the mud. This one was higher, sweeping, searching, and it moved with confidence. Like whoever held it already knew what they were looking for. The giant, the father, stiffened so fast it was like a switch flipped in his body. His head tilted, listening. His chest lifted with one slow breath. Then he made a sound I hadn't heard yet. Short, sharp, commanding. The twins reacted instantly. They didn't panic like animals. They didn't scatter like deer. They moved like kids who'd practiced this before. The protective twin grabbed the injured one by the arm and tried to pull them into the shadows. But the injured twin's leg buckled again. It stumbled, made a small, helpless sound, and the protective twin froze, torn between running and staying. I couldn't watch that. I took one step forward, very slow, hands open. "I can help," I whispered. "I can carry." The giant's eyes snapped to me, and for a second, I thought he might grab me, shove me, break me in half if I got too close. But he didn't. He looked at the twins. He looked at the approaching light. Then he looked back at me. And I swear, this is the only way I can explain it, he judged me. Like he was asking one question: are you the kind of human who saves, or the kind who takes? I swallowed hard and kept my hands visible. "No tricks," I whispered. "I'm not here to hurt them." The protective twin stared at me like it hated the idea of trusting me, like it had learned the hard way what humans do. Then the flashlight up the slope flicked again, closer. I heard a voice, a man's voice, low and irritated. "Spread out," he said. "They're down here." My stomach dropped. It wasn't just the hunter coming back. He'd brought help. The giant made another urgent sound. The twins pressed into the darkness, trying to disappear. The injured one couldn't. And I realized something terrible. If the hunters saw the twins first, the giant would do whatever it took to protect them. And if that happened, people would die. And the story wouldn't end with "Ranger saves lives." It would end with headlines. It would end with helicopters. It would end with a hunt. Not just for the creature, for the twins, for the whole family, for everything. I moved fast, but careful. I crouched near the injured twin, keeping my face turned slightly away so I didn't look aggressive. I didn't grab. I didn't yank. I simply held my arms out like you do when you pick up a scared kid who doesn't know if you're safe. The injured twin stared at my hands. Then it looked at the giant. The giant made a soft, low sound, different from the command. This one was calmer. Permission. The injured twin leaned forward a little, trembling. I slid one arm under its legs and the other behind its back. It was lighter than I expected. Not light like a toddler, but light like a child who'd been living lean. It made a small sound in my ear, more surprise than fear, and then it clung. Not like a wild animal, like a kid. Its long arms wrapped around my shoulder. Its head pressed against my chest for half a second, and I felt its breath. Fast, shaky. I froze, because that simple thing, being held, hit me in a way I wasn't ready for. I had carried my son like that when he was little. I had felt those same clinging arms, that same desperate trust. And suddenly, my throat tightened so hard it hurt. I stood slowly, the twin in my arms. The protective twin stayed close, hand on its sibling's shoulder like it refused to let go. The giant took position behind us, between us and the slope. A wall, a warning, a shield. I whispered, "Where do we go?" The giant didn't speak words, obviously, but he looked past the fallen log, deeper into the thickest part of the trees. Then he moved, quiet, certain. The protective twin followed. So I followed too. We went deeper, away from the creek, away from the open ground, into brush so dense it would tear your clothes if you fought it. Branches scraped my arms. Leaves slapped my face. The injured twin in my arms trembled each time a twig snapped, and I tried to move smoother, softer. Behind us, the human voices got closer. "Over here. Did you hear that?" I saw movement. Flashlights flickered through the trees like pale fingers. I kept my head down and my feet slow, forcing myself not to run. Running makes noise. Running makes panic. And panic gets people caught. The giant led us to a place I'd never noticed, even though I'd walked this part of the park before. A narrow cut between rocks, hidden behind ferns and fallen branches. It didn't look like an entrance to anything. It looked like nothing. But the giant pushed through, and suddenly the ground dipped and the air changed. Cooler, drier, the smell of stone and earth. The protective twin slipped in first. I followed, ducking, careful not to bump the injured one against the rock. Inside, it wasn't a cave like in movies. It wasn't a big chamber with echoes and dripping water. It was more like a sheltered hollow, deep enough to hide, shaped like the forest had built a secret room. And there were signs. Not human signs, but signs of living. A nest-like bedding made of leaves and dry grass. A few smooth stones piled together. And scratch marks on the rock that looked intentional, like tall fingers had marked a boundary. The protective twin guided me to the bedding and gestured sharply. "Put them down." I lowered the injured twin carefully onto the soft pile. It exhaled, a long shaky breath, and its body loosened a little like it finally felt safe. The protective twin immediately curled beside it, pressing close, placing one long arm across it like a seatbelt. The giant crouched near the entrance, half in, half out, listening. And me. I just stood there, breathing, trying to understand how my life had become this. Outside, the voices were still searching. And then I heard him again. The hunter. His voice was closer now, and it carried that same hungry excitement from earlier. "They're here," he said. "I know they're here." My pulse hammered. The giant's head turned slightly, eyes fixed on the dark outside. The protective twin made a small, anxious sound. The injured twin tried to sit up and immediately winced, clutching its leg. I knelt down and whispered without thinking, "Stay, please." It looked at me, and it did. It stayed. That should have been impossible. But it listened like it understood the idea of "stay safe." Then the hunter's voice cut through again. "I saw the ranger," he said. "He was with them." My stomach dropped so hard I felt sick. He was telling the others about me, turning me into part of it. A second voice, someone I didn't recognize, answered, "Ranger? He's helping you." The hunter scoffed. "He's helping them." There was a pause. Then another voice, colder. "If the ranger saw what you saw, we can't let him walk away." My blood went cold. I looked at the giant and whispered, "They're talking about hurting me." He didn't understand the words, but he understood the fear in my voice. His shoulders rose slightly. That warning posture again. Then the hunter's flashlight beam hit the brush near our hidden cut. A pale sweep. Too close. The protective twin tensed so hard its whole body shook. The injured twin pressed its face into the bedding like it wanted to disappear. I held my breath. The beam moved away, then came back. Closer. The hunter's voice was right outside now. "There's something here," he said quietly. "Feel that? The air's different." I could hear his boots shifting in leaves. I could hear him breathing. I could hear the faint rattle of metal. He was checking his rifle. My mind raced. If he found the entrance, he'd raise the gun, and the giant would react. And if the giant reacted, it wouldn't stop with a warning. I couldn't let that happen. I had to pull the hunters away. I had to become the decoy. The protective twin looked at me like it could sense the decision forming in my body. It made a small sound, almost like, "No." I whispered, "I'll come back." I don't know why I said it. Maybe because I needed to believe it. I looked at the giant, and I did the only thing I could think of. I pointed at myself, then pointed toward the entrance, then made a motion like, "I go." The giant watched me for a long moment. Then he made a low sound, soft but firm, almost like a warning, but directed at me, like, "Don't be stupid." I swallowed. I pointed at the twins, then put my hand over my heart. A promise gesture. The giant's eyes narrowed. Then, slowly, he shifted, giving me space, letting me pass. I moved toward the entrance, careful, quiet. And just before I stepped out, the protective twin reached out and touched my sleeve. Not grabbing, just a touch. A tiny anchor. I looked back. The protective twin's eyes held mine, and I saw something I'll never forget. Not fear. Not anger. A plea. So clear you don't need words. "Please don't let them find us." I nodded once. Then I slipped out into the brush. The night hit me like a wave. Cold. Wet. Loud. And there he was, 10 feet away. The hunter. Flashlight in one hand, rifle in the other. His eyes widened when he saw me step out of the trees like a ghost. "Well, well," he said, voice low. "There you are." I raised my hands. "Leave," I said. "Now." He laughed under his breath. "You think you're some kind of hero?" he asked. "You think they're your responsibility?" "They're not yours," I snapped. His smile faded. Then he lifted his flashlight and shone it directly in my face, trying to blind me. I blinked hard, but I didn't turn away. He stepped closer. "So you saw them," he said. "2 little ones. Gonna pretend you didn't." I said nothing. He leaned in, voice like poison. "Tell me where they went." I shook my head, and his expression changed. He looked past me, scanning the darkness, searching for the entrance I'd come out of. I shifted my body, blocking his line without making it obvious. He noticed. Of course he noticed. His eyes narrowed. "Oh," he whispered, smiling again. "You're standing in front of it." My stomach dropped. He took one step to the side. I mirrored him. He took another. I mirrored him again. And then the other men's flashlights appeared behind him, 3 beams, fanning through trees. The hunter spoke louder now, so they could hear. "He found them," he said, pointing at me. "Ranger found them." One of the men shouted. "Where are they?" The hunter didn't answer them. He kept his eyes on me. "You have 2 choices," he said softly. "Move, or I move you." I felt my heartbeat pounding in my throat. I knew I couldn't fight all of them. I knew I couldn't outrun light beams in thick woods. But I also knew this. If those men stepped 2 feet in the right direction, they'd find the entrance. And then it would be over. So I did something that still makes me feel insane when I say it out loud. I lied. I pointed away into the deeper forest and said, loud enough for all of them to hear, "They went that way." The hunter stared at me, not buying it. But the other men reacted immediately. 2 of them turned their lights in the direction I pointed. "Go, go," one of them said. The hunter didn't move. He watched me like a snake watching a mouse. "You think I'm stupid," he said. "No," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I think you're greedy." His jaw tightened, and then he did the one thing I feared most. He raised his rifle, not at me, past me, toward the brush near the hidden cut, toward the place the twins were hiding. My breath stopped. I moved without thinking. I lunged, grabbed his arm, and shoved it down. We struggled for a second. Dirty, close, silent violence that felt like the whole forest was leaning in. One of the other men shouted, "Hey!" The hunter jerked free, furious. And in that instant, a deep sound rolled out of the darkness behind me, so close it felt like it came from the ground itself. The hunter froze. All the flashlights snapped toward the sound, and for one terrifying heartbeat, I knew. The giant had stepped out. He was coming, not to scare them, to end it. And I didn't know if I could stop what happens when a father believes his children are about to die. The hunters went quiet, even the brave ones, even the ones holding guns. Because when something bigger than your fear stands in front of you, your courage suddenly remembers what it really is. A costume, and the giant's silhouette rose behind the trees, filling the darkness like a wall. The hunter whispered, voice shaking now, "There you are." And he lifted the rifle again. I shouted, "No." And that's where I have to stop this part. Because what happened next is the reason I'm confessing at all. And it's the reason I made a promise I never thought I'd make in my life. When I shouted "No," everything froze for a split second. The hunter had his rifle up. The other men swung their flashlights through the trees. And behind me, that massive shape rose in the dark like a wall. I knew what was coming. If a shot went off, somebody was going to die. So I stepped in front of the rifle again. "Don't," I said. "Just walk away." The hunter's hands were shaking now, but his eyes were still hungry. He tried to angle the barrel past me toward the brush where the twins were hidden. I grabbed the rifle and shoved it down. We struggled, quiet, brutal, close, until a deep warning sound rolled out of the darkness behind me. Not a scream, not rage, a warning with control. Every man out there felt it. The flashlights trembled. The voices went quiet. And then one of them finally said what they were all thinking. "This isn't worth it." They started backing up, tripping over roots, breathing hard, trying to keep their pride while their fear ran the show. The hunter stayed a second longer, staring at me like he wanted to burn my face into memory. "You're going to regret this," he whispered. Then he turned and ran with the others, disappearing into the trees. When it was quiet again, my legs almost gave out. I went back to the hidden hollow. The twins were still there, pressed together, shaking. The protective one stared at me like it didn't want to trust me but didn't know what else to do. The injured one was breathing fast, holding its leg like it hurt to even exist. I knelt down slowly and whispered, "They're gone." They didn't understand the words, but they understood the calm. The big one stayed at the entrance, watching me the whole time. Not threatening, just measuring. Before sunrise, we moved. I carried the injured twin again. The other one never left its side. And the big one led us deeper into the forest, choosing paths that hid us from open ground. After a long walk, we reached a thick section near the river, so tangled and quiet it felt like the world ended there. The big one stopped. That was the line. I could feel it. I lowered the injured twin onto moss. The protective one crouched beside it, touching its shoulder like a promise. Then the big one looked at me, close enough that I could see his eyes clearly. And he did something I will never forget. He spoke, rough, imperfect, but real. My name, Ethan. I stood there frozen, because that meant he'd been listening, watching, learning. He touched my shoulder lightly with the back of his fingers, then turned to the twins. One last soft sound, and they rose. The protective twin looked back at me once, and nodded. Then all three of them vanished into the trees like they'd never been there. Back at the station, I filed a report. I wrote about trespassers, illegal hunting, a shot fired, suspects fleeing. I left out the twins. I left out the giant. I left out the truth. Because if I told the truth, people wouldn't come to understand. They would come to take. And I made a promise in that forest. A promise I still keep, to protect them by staying quiet. But I'll say this much, and I'll say it once. Sometimes the most dangerous thing in the woods isn't what we fear. It's what a human being will do for money. And if I ever hear those two whistles again, one high, one low, I'll go back. Not to hunt, to stand in the way.